The kitchen knife trembled in Miguel's weathered hands as he stared at the eviction notice taped to his apartment door. $47. That's all that stood between his two little girls and the Chicago streets in the dead of winter. Sophia, 8 years old, tugged at his jacket. "Papa, why are you crying?" Elena, just 6, clutched her stuffed animal tighter, her dark eyes reflecting the kind of fear that no child should ever have to carry. 3 months since Maria's funeral. 3 months since cancer had stolen not just his wife, but his engineering career, their savings, and what felt like his reason to keep breathing. The girls were asking when Mommy was coming home. The landlord was asking for rent money that didn't exist. And Miguel was asking God for a miracle he wasn't sure he deserved. Maybe you know this feeling. That suffocating weight when the people you love most are counting on you, and you're drowning in circumstances beyond your control. The way your chest tightens when you count the same bills 3 times, hoping the numbers will somehow change. The bone-deep exhaustion of working multiple jobs while grief sits on your shoulders like lead. Miguel had felt it all. But tonight, 3 years later, as he adjusts the flame beneath his Anticucho grill along the Chicago Riverwalk, generating over $300,000 in annual profit from his food truck empire, those desperate winter nights feel like someone else's life. Hey there. Tonight, you'll discover how Miguel's moment of absolute desperation became the foundation for extraordinary abundance, and how his love for 2 motherless girls transformed into an unstoppable force that built wealth, community, and legacy from nothing but borrowed equipment and his grandmother's recipes. This isn't just another rags-to-riches story. This is the deeply personal journey of a widowed father who promised his dying wife he'd give their daughters the American dream, then had to figure out how to keep that promise when everything fell apart. Before you drift off, hit like if stories about fathers defying impossible odds speak to your soul, and subscribe to join others on this journey toward prosperity consciousness. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and how many nights you've been manifesting wealth with us. This community's commitment to abundance inspires me every single day. Now settle in and let your mind absorb this story of transformation, resilience, and the unstoppable power of love-driven determination. Because that winter night when Miguel held his daughters close and whispered, "Papa will find a way, Miss Angelitas. Papa will always find a way." That's when everything changed. Not because the circumstances improved, but because desperation crystallized into unbreakable resolve. You'll feel those early morning hours in his food truck, your heart pounding with his fear and hope as each customer becomes a step away from homelessness. The Chicago winter that nearly broke his spirit. The first review that changed everything. The moment his daughters looked at him with pride instead of worry, for the first time since their mother died. Tonight, as Miguel's story unfolds along the Chicago River, your subconscious mind will recognize that the same determination lives within you. His journey becomes your permission to transform your own desperation into unstoppable abundance. So breathe deeply, let your body sink into comfort, and prepare to witness a transformation that will plant seeds of unshakable prosperity in your own sleeping mind. You're already walking along the Chicago Riverwalk when the scent reaches you. That unmistakable blend of charred meat, bright AG peppers, and something indefinably comforting that makes your mouth water instantly. The evening air carries the aroma like an invitation, drawing you toward a gleaming food truck positioned perfectly between the riverside path and the glittering downtown skyline. Miguel looks up from his grill as you approach, his dark eyes crinkling with the kind of genuine warmth that immediately puts you at ease. "Good evening, my friend," he says, his accent carrying the musical cadence of Lima mixed with 3 years of Chicago determination. "You arrived at the perfect time. The anticuchos are exactly ready." Behind him, 2 young girls work with focused concentration. Sophia, the older one with her mother's elegant features and her father's serious expression, carefully counts out napkins into precise stacks. Elena, younger and more animated, hums a Spanish lullaby while organizing small containers of salsa criolla, her tiny hands moving with surprising efficiency. "This is Sophia and Elena," Miguel says, pride warming his voice like sunlight. "My business partners, and the reason I wake up every morning ready to build something beautiful." You can feel the love in this small space, as tangible as the steam rising from the grill. There's something about the way Miguel moves, economical, purposeful, every gesture serving both immediate function and long-term vision. When he flips the beef hearts on the grill, the sizzle creates a rhythm that seems to synchronize with your own heartbeat, grounding you in this moment of abundance and possibility. 3 years ago, Miguel continues, arranging skewers with artistic precision, I stood in this exact spot with $47 in my pocket and a pressure cooker that belonged to my late wife, Maria. These 2 angels were smaller then, still asking when Mommy was coming home from the hospital. The weight of his words settles over the evening air like twilight itself, heavy with meaning, but somehow peaceful. You notice how Sophia's hand briefly touches her father's arm, a gesture of comfort that speaks of strength built through shared struggle. Maria died of breast cancer when Elena was 3 and Sophia was 5, Miguel says simply, continuing to work as he speaks. Her last gift to us was a dream she made me promise to pursue. "Take our daughters to America," she whispered to me in the hospital. "Show them that love can build anything, even when it feels like you have nothing left." As Miguel speaks, you can feel your own body beginning to relax, the day's tensions melting away like butter on warm bread. The gentle lapping of the Chicago River creates a steady backdrop, mixing with the distant hum of evening traffic and the soft sizzle of the grill to create a symphony of urban peace. The first 6 months were... Miguel pauses, searching for words while he bastes the anticuchos with his grandmother's secret marinade. Imagine working 16 hours a day in a borrowed truck, sleeping on a cot in the back while your daughters do homework at a folding table that's smaller than most people's desks. Imagine counting every dollar 3 times because the difference between $62 and $63 might mean whether your children eat breakfast. Elena looks up from her organizing, her young face serious beyond her years. "Papa would sing to us when we were scared," she says in perfect English touched with the slightest accent. "He taught us that work is just another way of loving people." You feel something stirring in your chest, a recognition of the profound truth in those words. Work as love, service as abundance, building wealth not for its own sake, but as an expression of devotion to something larger than yourself. The truck belonged to Maria's cousin, Miguel continues, his hands never stopping their careful preparation. "He let me use it for free the first month, then for $200 monthly after that. I had exactly enough money to buy ingredients for 5 days if I was careful." Sophia adds weight to small plastic containers, her mathematical mind already calculating portions with impressive precision. "Papa taught us fractions by measuring spices," she says proudly, "and we learned percentages by figuring out profit margins." Miguel chuckles, the sound rich and warm as café con leche. These girls know more about business than most adults. They understand that every customer who walks away satisfied creates 3 more customers through word of mouth. They know that authenticity attracts abundance, and that serving others with love always creates prosperity. You can feel these principles settling into your consciousness like seeds finding fertile soil. The evening breeze carries the scent of success, not just the literal aroma of perfectly seasoned food, but the energetic fragrance of dreams being built, one customer, one day, one decision at a time. The first real breakthrough came from Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Miguel says, beginning to plate the anticuchos with artistic care. She was working the overnight shift at Northwestern Hospital, and she stumbled across my truck at 6 in the morning when I was just opening up. Exhausted, hungry, probably skeptical about some guy in a beat-up truck claiming to serve authentic Peruvian food. The memory seems to energize Miguel, his movements becoming even more fluid and confident. You notice how Elena mimics her father's posture, standing straighter when he tells this part of the story. Dr. Walsh took one bite of my anticuchos, and her whole face changed, Miguel continues. She said it reminded her of a trip she'd taken to Lima 5 years earlier, how she'd never found anything in Chicago that captured those authentic flavors. Then she asked me something that changed everything. "How often are you here?" Sophia giggles, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Papa didn't know she wrote for the Chicago Tribune food blog. He just thought she was a nice doctor who appreciated good food. 3 days later, Miguel says, his voice dropping to that hypnotic cadence that makes you feel like you're being told a secret. Dr. Walsh published a review titled, "Hidden Gem: Authentic Peru Finds Home on Chicago's Streets." She wrote about the anticuchos, yes, but mostly she wrote about watching Sophia help serve customers while explaining the ingredients in 2 languages, and Elena organizing condiments like she was preparing for a business presentation. You can feel the significance of that moment rippling outward like stones dropped in still water. One person recognizing authentic value. One review changing the trajectory of 3 lives. One family's commitment to excellence creating abundance that flows naturally, inevitably, like the river beside you. The anticuchos finish cooking with a final satisfying sizzle, and Miguel begins serving them with the reverence of someone who understands that every meal is both nourishment and gift. The charred edges glisten with marinade, the aroma so rich and complex, it seems to contain stories within stories. After that review, Miguel says, handing you a perfectly prepared plate, everything changed. Not overnight. Real abundance doesn't work that way. But steadily, like these girls growing taller every month, like confidence building one successful interaction at a time. As you taste the anticuchos, the flavors explode across your palate, smoky, spicy, with layers of complexity that speak of generations of culinary wisdom. This isn't just food, it's heritage transformed into prosperity, tradition alchemized into abundance. Now we serve lunch to half the law firms in the loop, Elena says matter-of-factly, as if generating $300,000 in annual profit is simply what happens when you combine love, hard work, and authentic value. And dinner to families who bring their children to practice Spanish with us, Sophia adds, her pride evident in the way she straightens her shoulders. Miguel wipes his hands on his apron, the gesture of a man who has learned to find satisfaction in both the process and the results. Every night when I close the truck, I feel Maria's presence, not as sadness anymore, but as confirmation that love really can build anything, even a business that started with $47 and a prayer. As the Chicago skyline begins to twinkle with evening lights, you can feel something fundamental shifting in your understanding of what's possible. Success isn't about having money to start with. It's about having love strong enough to fuel you when you start with almost nothing. The evening air grows cooler as Miguel begins preparing for the dinner rush, and you find yourself drawn deeper into the rhythm of this family business that operates like a well-choreographed dance. Sophia checks the ice levels in the drink cooler, while Elena restocks the small containers of ají verde, each movement purposeful and practiced. The second month was when we almost gave up, Miguel admits, his voice carrying the weight of remembered fear as he preps vegetables with knife skills that would impress any professional chef. Doctor, Walsh's review brought customers, yes, but I hadn't learned yet how to turn one good review into sustainable business. You notice how his hands move with meditation-like focus as he dices red onions with perfect uniformity. There's something hypnotic about watching someone who has mastered their craft, the way efficiency and artistry blend into something that transcends mere work. Papa would stand here until midnight calculating everything, Sophia says, helping her father arrange ingredients in the precise order that maximizes efficiency during busy periods. How much each ingredient cost, how much profit each dish generated, how many customers we needed per day to pay rent and buy groceries. Elena nods seriously, her young face reflecting understanding beyond her years. We learned that running out of food meant losing money, but buying too much meant wasting money. Papa called it walking the tightrope of abundance. Miguel chuckles at his daughter's memory, the sound mixing with the gentle splash of small waves against the riverwalk. These girls became my business advisors without realizing it. Elena has this gift for remembering every customer's order, and Sophia can calculate profit margins faster than most accounting software. As Miguel speaks, you can feel your own mind beginning to absorb the deeper principles underlying their success. This isn't just about food service. It's about creating systems that allow love to generate abundance, about building businesses that serve both family needs and community hunger. The learning curve was steep, Miguel continues, beginning to marinate tomorrow's meat with a blend of spices that fills the air with promise. In Peru, I was an engineer. I understood machinery, calculations, precision. But business, customer service, marketing, these were foreign languages that I had to learn while working 16-hour days and caring for 2 grieving children. You watch as Sophia automatically adjusts the position of the napkin dispenser, optimizing workflow without conscious thought. There's something beautiful about how children absorb business principles simply by being part of a family that operates with intention and excellence. The third month brought our first catering opportunity, Miguel says, his voice dropping into that rhythmic cadence that makes you feel like you're receiving ancient wisdom. A law firm downtown needed lunch for 40 people, and someone had mentioned my truck. I said yes before I even calculated whether I could handle an order that size. Elena laughs, the sound bright as morning sunshine. Papa stayed up all night making empanadas. We helped fold them, sitting on the floor of the truck at 2 a.m, learning about deadlines and commitments. That catering job taught me something crucial, Miguel continues, seasoning a large batch of pollo a la brasa with movements that have become second nature. Abundance doesn't come from playing it safe. It comes from saying yes to opportunities that scare you a little, then figuring out how to deliver excellence under pressure. You can feel this principle settling into your consciousness like truth, finding its proper place. The willingness to stretch beyond current capabilities. The faith that capability expands to meet genuine commitment. The understanding that growth requires dancing on the edge of your comfort zone. The 40 empanadas turned into weekly catering for that law firm, Sophia says proudly, arranging utensils with the precision of someone who understands that details matter. Then their clients started asking about catering too. Papa says word of mouth is the most powerful marketing in the world. Miguel nods, his movements steady and sure as he prepares portions of causa limeña, Maria's secret recipe that has become the truck's signature dish. When you serve people with authentic love, they become ambassadors for your success. They don't just recommend your food, they share your story. The causa takes shape under Miguel's skilled hands, layers of seasoned potatoes and fresh seafood arranged with artistic precision. You can feel the love that goes into each plate, the way excellence becomes a form of prayer, service transformed into sacred practice. But the real test came in November, Miguel says, his voice growing quieter as he recalls a more difficult memory. Chicago winter hit early that year, and suddenly standing outside to eat lunch became unbearable for our regular customers. Elena wraps her small jacket tighter around herself, as if remembering those cold months. The truck got so cold that our hands would shake when we tried to count change. Papa worried we might have to close until spring. Revenue dropped 70% in 2 weeks, Miguel admits, continuing to work as he speaks. I started calculating how long our savings would last, whether I should look for a regular job, how to explain to the girls that our dream might need to wait. You notice how Sophia moves closer to her father during this part of the story, her hand briefly touching his arm in a gesture of comfort that speaks to the deep bond forged through shared struggle. There's something profound about watching a family that has learned to face challenges together, to find strength in unity rather than isolation. Then Mrs. Patterson changed everything, Miguel says, his voice warming with gratitude. She managed the building where 3 law firms rented space, and she called me directly. Miguel, she said, what would it take for you to set up inside our lobby during winter months? The memory seems to energize Miguel, his movements becoming more animated as he recalls this turning point. You can feel the significance of that phone call, the way one person's creative thinking opened a door that transformed limitation into opportunity. Mrs. Patterson convinced the building management to let me operate in their heated lobby 3 days a week, Miguel continues, beginning to plate the causa with artistic care. In exchange, I provided free coffee and pastries for their reception desk, and I gave all their tenants a 10% discount. Sophia beams with pride. Papa learned that problems are just opportunities wearing disguises. The cold weather that almost stopped our business became the reason we got access to hundreds of office workers who had never tried Peruvian food. And Elena discovered she has a gift for customer service, Miguel adds, smiling at his younger daughter. She would greet people in the lobby, explain the menu items, make everyone feel welcome. Her enthusiasm was contagious. Elena stands straighter, clearly proud of her contribution. Papa taught me that when you help people feel good about their choices, they come back more often, and they bring their friends. You can feel the wisdom in these observations settling into your consciousness like nourishment for your own dreams. The understanding that obstacles often contain their own solutions. The recognition that genuine enthusiasm creates its own marketing. The faith that problems, approached with creativity and persistence, transform into stepping stones toward greater abundance. By February, we were earning more money in that lobby than we'd ever made on the street, Miguel says, arranging the final garnishes on the causa with the attention to detail that distinguishes professional excellence from amateur effort. Not just because of the weather protection, but because we'd learned to adapt, to serve customers where they were, instead of waiting for them to come to us. The causa finished, Miguel hands you a portion that looks like edible art. Layers of golden potatoes, fresh avocado, and perfectly seasoned seafood arranged with colors that seem to glow in the evening light. The first bite reveals complexity that speaks of generations of culinary wisdom, tradition transformed into innovation. That winter taught us the most important business lesson, Miguel says, his voice carrying the authority of earned wisdom. Success isn't about having perfect conditions. It's about adapting so well to imperfect conditions that you discover opportunities you never would have found otherwise. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid stars, you can feel these principles integrating into your understanding of what creates lasting abundance. Adaptability as strength, service as strategy, love as the foundation that makes everything else possible. The dinner crowd begins to gather as evening settles over downtown Chicago, and you watch Miguel's operation shift into a higher gear with the seamless efficiency of a family that has learned to work as one organism. Office workers in tailored suits mix with casual diners, all drawn by the same magnetic combination of authentic flavors and genuine warmth that radiates from this small mobile kitchen. Spring brought us back to the streets, but we were different people by then, Miguel says, his movements becoming more rapid as he anticipates the evening rush. We understood our customers better, our systems were more efficient, and most importantly, we'd learned that abundance comes to those who serve consistently, regardless of circumstances. Sophia takes her position at the service window, her young face serious with responsibility as she reviews the evening's specials written on a small chalkboard in both English and Spanish. Elena organizes the condiment station with the precision of someone who understands that every small detail contributes to the overall customer experience. The real momentum began when Carlos Mendoza found us, Miguel continues, beginning to grill the first anticuchos of the evening rush. He owned 3 restaurants in Pilsen, and he'd heard about the Peruvian truck that was drawing crowds downtown. But he didn't come as competition. He came as community. You can feel the importance of this moment in the way Miguel's voice takes on a reverent tone. There's something powerful about the concept of abundance shared, rather than hoarded, community built through mutual success, rather than zero-sum competition. Carlos taught me that the restaurant business in Chicago is really about relationships, Miguel says, flipping skewers with practiced precision while managing 3 different cooking surfaces simultaneously. He introduced me to suppliers who could get me better prices on ingredients, distributors who specialized in Latin American products, even other food truck owners who became allies instead of rivals. Elena pipes up proudly. Mr. Carlos said Papa's anticuchos were better than his own restaurants, and he asked Papa to teach his cooks the marinade recipe. In exchange, Sophia adds, handling the first customers of the evening with confidence that belies her age, Mr. Carlos taught Papa about bulk purchasing, seasonal menu planning, and how to calculate food costs for catering contracts. You observe how naturally the girls have integrated into the business operations, Sophia taking orders and making change, while Elena explains menu items to curious first-time customers. Their comfort and competence in this environment speaks to something deeper than child labor. This is education through meaningful participation, confidence built through genuine contribution. That partnership with Carlos opened doors I didn't even know existed, Miguel says, plating orders with artistic attention while maintaining conversation flow. He connected me with wedding planners who needed authentic ethnic catering, corporate event coordinators looking for unique lunch options, even festival organizers who wanted to showcase Chicago's diverse food scene. The anticuchos sizzle and release their complex aroma into the cooling evening air, and you feel your senses becoming more attuned to the layers of experience surrounding you. The visual beauty of perfectly charred meat against colorful vegetables, the rhythmic sounds of efficient kitchen work mixing with customer conversations and river sounds, the emotional satisfaction of watching a family business operating at full capacity. By summer, we were booking catering events 3 weeks in advance. Miguel continues, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who has learned to build sustainable success rather than chase quick wins. Not because we were the cheapest option, but because we'd earned a reputation for reliability, authenticity, and service that made every customer feel like family. A regular customer approaches the window, a woman in business attire who greets Sophia by name and orders the usual without needing to specify details. You watch the interaction unfold with the warmth of genuine relationship rather than mere commercial transaction. Mrs. Chen has been ordering our pollo a la brasa every Tuesday for 8 months, Elena explains to you, while her father prepares the familiar order. She brings her colleagues here for lunch meetings because she says the food helps important conversations happen more naturally. Miguel nods, arranging Mrs. Chen's order with extra care. Elena discovered something I hadn't realized. People don't just buy food from us. They buy the experience of feeling welcomed, understood, part of something authentic and warm. That's why our customers become advocates for our success. You can feel this principle resonating through your consciousness like a struck bell. Business as relationship, service as hospitality. Success measured not just in dollars, but in the depth of human connection created through consistent excellence. The breakthrough moment came during the Taste of Chicago festival, Miguel says, beginning preparation for the next wave of customers. We were invited to participate, which meant serving thousands of people over 4 days, competing directly with established restaurants that had been part of the festival for decades. Sophia's eyes light up with remembered excitement. Papa was so nervous he couldn't sleep for 3 nights before the festival. He kept calculating how much food to prepare, whether our small truck could handle that volume of customers. But Elena had a brilliant idea, Miguel continues, his pride in his younger daughter evident in his tone. She suggested we create a festival special, a smaller portion that would let people try multiple dishes instead of ordering one large meal. Elena beams at the recognition. I noticed that people at festivals like to walk around and try lots of different foods. So we made mini portions of our 3 most popular dishes, served them in a special container that was easy to carry while walking. The wisdom in this observation strikes you as profound. A 6-year-old intuiting customer psychology and market dynamics that many experienced restaurateurs never grasp. Sometimes breakthrough insights come from seeing situations with fresh eyes, unclouded by industry assumptions or conventional wisdom. The festival special was our most popular item, Miguel says, serving another regular customer who orders in rapid Spanish before switching to English to chat with the girls. We sold out every day by 2 o'clock, and people started asking if we'd consider opening a restaurant location. You notice how the conversation flows naturally between languages, how the truck serves as a cultural bridge that makes everyone feel included, regardless of their linguistic background. There's something beautiful about watching authentic cultural exchange happen through the simple act of sharing food. That's when we realized we weren't just running a food truck anymore. Miguel continues, his voice taking on the contemplative tone of someone reflecting on unexpected transformation. We were building a brand, creating a reputation, establishing ourselves as part of Chicago's culinary landscape. The evening rush intensifies, and you watch the family operation scale seamlessly to meet demand. Miguel manages multiple cooking surfaces, while Sophia handles orders and Elena keeps supplies stocked. Their coordination speaks to countless hours of practice, systems refined through daily repetition until excellence becomes automatic. The festival led to our first major corporate catering contract, Miguel says, somehow maintaining conversation while serving a steady stream of customers. A downtown hotel wanted to offer authentic Chicago street food for a convention of international business leaders. 500 meals over 3 days, including setup in their ballroom. Sophia takes a brief break from customer service to add proudly, "Papa had to rent extra equipment and hire temporary help. We learned about scaling up, managing larger operations, maintaining quality even when serving hundreds of people instead of dozens. And we learned that success creates its own challenges," Elena adds with surprising wisdom for her age. When you become known for excellence, people expect excellence every single time. There's no room for having a bad day or cutting corners. You can feel the weight of this responsibility settling into your understanding, how reputation becomes both asset and obligation, how success raises stakes while creating opportunities. The evening air carries these insights like music, lessons absorbed through observation rather than instruction. As the dinner rush continues, you observe how each successful interaction builds momentum for the next one. Satisfied customers creating word-of-mouth marketing. Efficient service building confidence that enables even better service. Small excellences compounding into sustainable abundance. By the end of that summer, Miguel says, pausing briefly to wipe perspiration from his forehead while maintaining his cooking rhythm, we were generating more profit than I'd ever earned as an engineer in Peru. Not just enough to survive, but enough to start thinking about the future. College funds for the girls, maybe even saving toward that restaurant location people kept suggesting. The significance of this statement hangs in the cooling air like promise itself. An immigrant family not just surviving in a new country, but thriving. Dreams not just maintained through hardship, but expanded through success. Love not just preserving hope, but generating prosperity that creates even more possibilities. As the evening deepens and the Chicago skyline transforms into a constellation of glittering windows, you settle into the rhythm of watching a business that has learned to operate at its optimal capacity. The dinner rush flows around Miguel's truck like a river around a well-positioned stone. Customers arriving, being served with practiced efficiency, and departing satisfied while new faces take their place. Year 2 was when we stopped thinking like survivors and started thinking like builders, Miguel says, his movements now so fluid they seem choreographed as he manages the complex dance of simultaneous cooking, customer service, and business management. The difference between surviving and thriving isn't just about money, it's about mindset. Sophia has evolved into a sophisticated cashier, handling complex orders and dietary questions with the confidence of someone who truly understands the products she's selling. Elena has become a natural ambassador, greeting customers warmly and explaining ingredients with enthusiasm that makes even the most hesitant first-timer feel excited to try something new. The scaling challenge was psychological as much as operational, Miguel continues, beginning to prep ingredients for tomorrow while serving tonight's customers. When you start with $47, every expense feels dangerous. But when you're generating real profit, you have to learn to invest in growth instead of hoarding from fear. You watch as Miguel demonstrates this principle in real time, using high-quality ingredients that cost more but create superior flavor, investing in efficient equipment that speeds service, employing processes that prioritize long-term reputation over short-term savings. Our first major investment was a second truck, Miguel says, his voice carrying the weight of a decision that required significant courage. Carlos connected me with a financing program for minority-owned small businesses, but even with favorable terms, the monthly payments were more than I'd earned total in my first month of operation. Elena looks up from organizing tomorrow's supplies. Papa was so scared about the truck payment that he would count our money every night for 2 weeks, making sure we could afford both trucks. But Sophia convinced me that fear was just another form of limitation, Miguel says, smiling at his older daughter with obvious pride. She calculated that if the second truck generated even 60% of our first truck's revenue, we'd be profitable. And she was right. Sophia straightens with justified pride. I learned about fixed costs and variable costs in school, and I realized that some expenses don't increase when you serve more customers. The truck payment stays the same whether you serve 50 people or 200. The wisdom embedded in this observation strikes you as fundamental to understanding how abundance actually scales. There's a mathematical poetry to business growth, where understanding the relationship between fixed and variable costs unlocks the potential for exponential rather than linear expansion. The second truck allowed us to serve lunch in the Loop while maintaining our evening presence along the Riverwalk, Miguel explains, plating orders with artistic precision while managing multiple conversations. Suddenly, we weren't choosing between opportunities. We were saying yes to both. You feel the significance of this shift resonating through your consciousness. The evolution from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking. The recognition that growth often requires saying yes to multiple opportunities simultaneously rather than focusing exclusively on one safe option. But scaling also meant learning to delegate, Miguel continues, his voice taking on the contemplative tone of someone who has wrestled with control versus growth. I had to hire and train other cooks, trust them to maintain our quality standards, teach them the recipes that Maria's grandmother had shared with our family. Elena adds thoughtfully, Papa learned that keeping secrets doesn't create security. It creates limitations. When he taught other people our recipes, our food got served to more customers, which meant more people became fans of our cooking. The profundity of this insight settles into your awareness like a fundamental truth about how abundance actually operates. Sharing knowledge creates expansion rather than dilution. Teaching others your methods multiplies your impact rather than diminishing your uniqueness. The delegation process taught me something unexpected, Miguel says, beginning to clean his cooking surfaces while maintaining the dinner service flow. When you teach someone else to do something you love, you don't lose the ability. You gain the capacity to focus on the parts of the business that only you can do. Sophia takes over the conversation briefly while her father handles a complex order. Papa started focusing more on menu development, supplier relationships, and strategic planning, the parts of the business that require his specific knowledge and experience. And I got better at customer relationships and staff training, Elena adds, her young voice carrying surprising business sophistication. The parts where my personality and energy made the biggest difference. You observe how naturally the family has evolved into specialized roles that leverage each person's unique strengths. There's something beautiful about watching organic organization emerge from genuine understanding of individual capabilities and business needs. The second truck's success led to our first restaurant inquiry, Miguel says, his voice dropping into that hypnotic rhythm that makes you feel like you're receiving privileged information. A property developer in Lincoln Park wanted to anchor a new mixed-use development with authentic ethnic restaurants. He offered us a lease with favorable terms for the first 2 years. The weight of this opportunity hangs in the evening air like promise itself. You can feel the significance of being invited to transition from mobile food service to permanent establishment, the validation implicit in someone betting their real estate investment on your business concept. But by then, we'd learned to evaluate opportunities strategically instead of reacting emotionally. Miguel continues, somehow maintaining philosophical discussion while serving a steady stream of customers. A restaurant would mean different operational challenges, higher fixed costs, dependence on location traffic instead of mobile flexibility. Sophia explains their decision-making process with impressive analytical sophistication. We calculated that 3 trucks could generate the same revenue as 1 restaurant, with lower overhead and more market flexibility. Plus, trucks let us test new locations and build customer loyalty before committing to permanent investments. So we thanked the developer, but proposed a different arrangement, Miguel says, his entrepreneurial creativity evident in his tone. We would operate a food truck in his development's courtyard 3 days per week, providing the authentic dining option he wanted while maintaining our operational advantages. Elena beams with pride at her family's innovative solution. The developer loved it because he got the food service he needed without the risk of a restaurant failing. And we got access to a wealthy neighborhood that appreciated high-quality, authentic cuisine. You can feel the elegance of this win-win solution resonating through your consciousness. Sometimes the best answer to an either-or question is a creative third option that serves everyone's needs while maintaining your core operational advantages. That partnership led to similar arrangements in 3 other developments, Miguel says, beginning to wind down the evening service while preparing for closing procedures. Now, we operate in 5 different locations throughout the week, each with its own customer base and revenue stream. The evening crowd begins to thin as office workers head home and dinner customers finish their meals. You watch the family begin their closing routine, a synchronized process that speaks to countless repetitions refined into efficient artistry. This year, we'll gross just over $300,000, Miguel says, the number landing in the cooling air with the weight of extraordinary achievement. More than I ever earned as an engineer, generated through work that honors Maria's memory and builds Sophia and Elena's future. Sophia carefully counts the evening's cash while Elena organizes supplies for tomorrow's service. Their competence and comfort with these responsibilities speaks to education that extends far beyond any classroom curriculum. But the money isn't the real success, Miguel says, his voice carrying the wisdom of someone who has learned to measure abundance in multiple dimensions. The real success is that we built something that serves our community while honoring our heritage. We created work that feels like love in action. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid wealth, you can feel these principles settling into your understanding of what creates lasting abundance. Success measured not just in profit, but in purpose. Wealth that serves family and community simultaneously. Business as a vehicle for honoring heritage while building future possibilities. The evening service winds down as the last customers savor their meals along the Riverwalk, and you find yourself drawn into the quieter rhythm of a family business, transitioning from performance to reflection. Miguel begins the methodical process of cleaning his equipment, each motion deliberate and meditative, while Sophia and Elena organize supplies with the focused attention that comes from understanding their role in something larger than themselves. Success changes you in ways you don't expect, Miguel says, his voice taking on the contemplative tone of someone who has learned to find wisdom in unexpected places. When you start with nothing, every small victory feels enormous. But as you build momentum, you realize that abundance isn't just about what you accumulate. It's about what you create for others. You watch as Elena carefully wipes down surfaces with the thoroughness of someone who understands that excellence lives in the details, while Sophia counts the evening's receipts with mathematical precision that would impress any accountant. Their competence in these tasks speaks to education that transcends formal curriculum, wisdom earned through meaningful participation in real-world enterprise. The third year brought opportunities we never could have imagined, Miguel continues, seasoning tomorrow's marinade with the same attention to quality that he brings to orders served immediately. Corporate catering contracts, festival partnerships, even a consulting arrangement with other food truck entrepreneurs who wanted to learn our operational systems. The significance of this last point settles into your consciousness like a revelation. Success that becomes teachable. Abundance that multiplies by being shared. The recognition that expertise earned through struggle becomes valuable knowledge that can accelerate others' journeys. Mr. Rodriguez was our first consulting client, Sophia explains, her young voice carrying pride in her family's growing influence. He wanted to start a Mexican food truck, but didn't know about permits, supplier relationships, or location strategies. Papa taught him everything we'd learned through trial and error. Miguel nods, continuing his cleaning routine while speaking. Teaching Roberto reminded me that every challenge we'd overcome had taught us something valuable. The permit process that frustrated us for months became knowledge we could share in an afternoon. The supplier relationships that took us a year to develop became introductions we could make in a day. You can feel the elegant mathematics of this principle resonating through the evening air. Struggle transformed into strength. Experience alchemized into expertise. The understanding that your journey's difficulties become other people's shortcuts when you choose to share what you've learned. But the real transformation happened when Elena suggested we hire other immigrant families, Miguel says, his voice warming with paternal pride as he recalls his younger daughter's insight. She noticed that our Spanish-speaking customers felt most comfortable when they could order in their native language, and she wondered if other families like ours needed work opportunities. Elena looks up from her organizing, her young face serious with the weight of social observation. I saw how happy people got when they could speak Spanish with us, how they relaxed and smiled more. And I thought about families like ours who maybe needed jobs that understood their situation. The depth of this insight strikes you as profound, a child intuiting both market opportunity and social responsibility simultaneously. There's something beautiful about watching natural empathy evolve into business strategy that serves multiple constituencies while generating sustainable profit. Now we employ 6 people across our 3 trucks, Miguel says, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who has learned to measure success in jobs created as well as profit generated. Carmen runs our loop location, speaking perfect Spanish with our Mexican customers and perfect English with our corporate clients. David manages our Lincoln Park operation, connecting with the community through his knowledge of Peruvian culture and Chicago neighborhoods. Sophia adds proudly, and Mrs. Santos handles our weekend festival truck. She's a grandmother from El Salvador who makes the best pupusas in the city, so Papa added them to our menu as a special item. You observe how naturally this expansion has created cultural fusion while maintaining authentic identity. Not dilution of vision, but enrichment through diversity. Business growth that strengthens community rather than exploiting it. Each person we hired brought their own customer relationships and cultural knowledge, Miguel explains, beginning to prep ingredients for tomorrow's early service. Carmen's connections in the Mexican business community led to catering contracts we never would have accessed. David's relationships in Lincoln Park created opportunities for private party catering. Mrs. Santos's pupusas attracted Salvadoran families who then discovered our Peruvian dishes. The mathematics of this expansion resonates through your consciousness like music. Each authentic connection creating multiple new connections. Diversity generating strength through complementary rather than competitive relationships. Community building that becomes business building, that becomes community building in an endless positive cycle. But hiring people also meant learning about leadership, Miguel continues, his voice taking on the weight of responsibility discovered rather than sought. When someone depends on you for their livelihood, every business decision affects their family's security. That changes how you think about risk, growth, and responsibility. Elena pauses in her organizing to add thoughtfully, Papa learned that being a boss means helping other people succeed, not just making sure they do their work. He teaches our employees about cost management and customer service so they can start their own businesses someday if they want to. The profundity of this approach strikes you as revolutionary. Employment as education, business as incubator for other businesses, success measured not just in personal achievement, but in enabling others' entrepreneurial development. Carlos suggested that our training program could become another revenue stream, Miguel says, his voice carrying the excitement of discovery. Other food truck owners were willing to pay for the systems and knowledge we'd developed through 3 years of trial and error. Sophia explains their educational offering with impressive business sophistication. We charge $1,500 for a 2-day intensive training program that covers everything from permit applications to supplier negotiations to location strategy. It includes access to our vendor network and 6 months of phone consultation. And every person who completes our program becomes part of our informal network, Miguel adds, cleaning his grill with the methodical attention that speaks to pride in equipment and process. We share location information, coordinate with each other instead of competing, even collaborate on large catering events that require multiple trucks. You can feel the elegance of this collaborative approach settling into your understanding of how abundance actually operates at scale. Competition transformed into cooperation. Individual success, creating network effects that benefit everyone. Scarcity thinking replaced by abundance. Thinking that generates more opportunities for all participants. The network effect surprised us, Miguel continues, his voice dropping into that hypnotic rhythm that makes profound insights feel like natural conversation. When you help others succeed, they naturally want to help you succeed. Roberto refers corporate catering clients to us when his Mexican cuisine doesn't fit their needs. Sarah connects us with wedding planners who want diverse ethnic options. Marcus shares prime festival locations that work better for our Peruvian menu than his barbecue focus. Elena looks up from her final organizing tasks, her young face bright with understanding. Papa says it's like planting a garden. When you help other seeds grow, the whole garden becomes more beautiful and productive. The metaphor resonates through the cooling evening air like truth itself. Business as gardening, success as cultivation, abundance as the natural result of creating conditions where everyone can flourish according to their authentic nature and unique strengths. This year, We're launching our first franchise pilot program, Miguel announces, the significance of this statement landing like a stone dropped in still water. 3 of our training program graduates want to operate Miguel's authentic Peruvian trucks in their own cities, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. Sophia beams with pride at this expansion. They'll pay us a percentage of their revenue in exchange for using our recipes, suppliers, and operational systems, plus ongoing support and marketing coordination. But more importantly, Miguel says, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has learned to think beyond personal success, they'll be bringing authentic Peruvian culture to communities that have never experienced it. Food as cultural bridge, business as community building. The evening's final customer departs with obvious satisfaction, and you watch the family complete their closing routine with the synchronized efficiency that speaks to countless repetitions refined into artistry. Equipment cleaned and secured, supplies organized for tomorrow, cash counted and recorded, truck positioned for overnight parking. When I look at where we started and where we are now, Miguel says, his voice carrying the wonder of someone still surprised by the journey's trajectory, I realize that success isn't just about achieving your own dreams. It's about discovering that your dreams were smaller than your actual potential. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid possibility, you can feel these principles integrating into your understanding of what creates lasting abundance. Success that generates more success for others. Leadership that creates more leaders. Dreams that expand to accommodate not just personal achievement, but community transformation. Maria would be proud, Miguel says quietly, his voice carrying love that transcends loss. Not just of the money we've earned, but of the community we've built, the people we've employed, the culture we've shared. She always said that the best way to honor your heritage is to share it generously with the world. The evening settles into peaceful quiet, and you can feel something fundamental shifting in your understanding of what success actually means. Not just personal achievement, but the creation of conditions where others can achieve as well. Not just individual abundance, but community prosperity that lifts everyone together. The Chicago skyline settles into its evening rhythm as the last traces of sunset fade behind the towering buildings, and you find yourself immersed in the contemplative quiet that follows a successful day of service. Miguel secures the final elements of his mobile kitchen, while Sophia and Elena complete their nightly inventory with the practiced competence that speaks to deep understanding of business fundamentals. The 4th year taught us something unexpected about legacy, Miguel says, his voice carrying the reflective tone of someone who has learned to see patterns in the journey that weren't visible during the struggle. When you build something authentic, it starts to build itself. The business begins generating opportunities that you never could have planned or predicted. You watch as the family performs their closing ritual with meditation-like focus, each movement serving both immediate function and long-term care of the tools that generate their prosperity. There's something deeply satisfying about observing people who have learned to honor their instruments of abundance through meticulous attention to maintenance and quality. Last month, the Chicago Tourism Board approached us about representing the city's street food scene in a national documentary, Sophia announces proudly, her young voice carrying the excitement of recognition beyond their immediate community. They said our story represents the best of immigrant entrepreneurship and authentic cultural exchange. Elena adds with characteristic enthusiasm. The documentary crew followed us for 3 days, filming everything from our early morning prep to our evening cleanup. They interviewed our employees, our regular customers, even Mr. Carlos, who helped us when we were just starting. Miguel nods, continuing to clean his equipment with the same attention to excellence that he brings to food preparation. The documentary opportunity reminded me that our story isn't just about one family's success. It's about something larger. The American dream still being achievable for people willing to serve others with authentic value. You can feel the significance of this recognition settling into your consciousness like validation of principles that extend far beyond individual achievement. When your work serves community needs while honoring cultural heritage, it naturally attracts attention from those who recognize authentic value creation. But the real legacy isn't the media attention, Miguel continues, his voice taking on the deeper resonance of someone who has learned to distinguish between external recognition and internal satisfaction. The real legacy is what happens when Sofia and Elena take over the business someday. Will they find something worth continuing, or something they need to escape from? The profundity of this question hangs in the cooling air, like a challenge to every parent, every entrepreneur, every person building something they hope will outlast their own participation. Legacy as gift rather than burden. Success that empowers rather than imprisons the next generation. Papa has been teaching us about business ownership, not just business operation, Sofia explains, her young voice carrying surprising sophistication about long-term planning. How to make decisions based on 5-year consequences instead of immediate needs. How to balance growth with sustainability. How to preserve authentic culture while adapting to changing markets. Elena, organizing tomorrow's supplies with methodical precision, adds thoughtfully, and he's teaching us that the business should serve our lives, not control our lives. That success means having choices, not just having money. The wisdom embedded in these observations strikes you as fundamental to understanding healthy relationship with abundance. Business as vehicle for freedom rather than prison of obligation. Success that creates options rather than limiting them. Wealth that serves life purpose rather than becoming life purpose. The franchise program is designed with this principle in mind, Miguel says, beginning to secure his truck for overnight parking while maintaining conversation. Each franchisee maintains creative control over their menu adaptations, community relationships, and operational style. We provide framework and support, not rigid control. You observe how this approach reflects the family's core values: empowerment rather than exploitation, collaboration rather than domination, success that multiplies rather than concentrates. There's something beautiful about watching business expansion that strengthens rather than dilutes authentic cultural expression. Our Milwaukee franchisee, Janet, has added Polish pierogi to her Peruvian menu because her neighborhood has a large Polish population. Sofia explains with obvious pride in this cultural fusion. And our Indianapolis partner, David, collaborates with local jazz clubs to provide late-night food service during concert events. Each adaptation teaches us something new about how Peruvian flavors can complement other cultural traditions, Miguel says, his voice carrying the excitement of discovery rather than the anxiety of control. Instead of protecting our purity, we're learning how authenticity actually becomes stronger through generous interaction with other authentic traditions. The mathematics of this cultural exchange resonates through your consciousness like music. Authenticity that deepens through sharing rather than isolation. Cultural identity that strengthens through engagement rather than protection. Community building that happens naturally when people approach differences with curiosity rather than suspicion. The consulting and training programs have evolved into something like a business school for food entrepreneurs. Miguel continues, cleaning his work surfaces with the reverence of someone who understands that tools properly cared for become partners in creating abundance. We offer weekend intensives, ongoing mentorship programs, even small business loans for graduates who need startup capital. Elena looks up from her organizing, her young face bright with social awareness beyond her years. Papa realized that teaching people to start their own businesses creates more prosperity for everyone than just hiring more employees for our own business. The profundity of this insight settles into your understanding like a fundamental principle of sustainable wealth creation. Individual success that generates collective success. Education that creates more educators. Business ownership that creates more business owners rather than more dependent employees. Next year, we're launching the Miguel's Foundation, Miguel announces, the significance of this statement carrying the weight of dreams expanding beyond personal achievement. A nonprofit organization that provides microloans, business training, and mentorship specifically for immigrant food entrepreneurs. Sophia explains the Foundation's mission with impressive clarity about social impact. Many immigrant families have authentic culinary traditions and strong work ethics, but they lack access to startup capital, business knowledge, and professional networks. The Foundation addresses all three barriers simultaneously. And Elena suggested that successful Foundation clients become mentors for new clients. Miguel adds, his paternal pride evident in his acknowledgement of his younger daughter's strategic thinking. Creating a self-sustaining system where each generation of success enables the next generation's achievement. You can feel the elegant sustainability of this approach resonating through the evening air. Success that teaches success. Abundance that creates more abundance. Community building that becomes self-perpetuating through structured relationship and mutual investment. The Foundation will be funded partly through franchise fees, partly through corporate donations, and partly through a percentage of profits from our existing operations, Miguel explains, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of diversified revenue streams for social impact initiatives. Elena adds with characteristic enthusiasm, and will document every success story, creating a library of immigrant business case studies that prove the economic value of welcoming newcomers to America. The vision embedded in this project strikes you as both practical and profound. Research that counters xenophobia with evidence. Stories that transform abstract policy debates into human faces and family dreams. Business success that becomes social advocacy through demonstration rather than argumentation. Maria always said that the purpose of achieving dreams isn't to stop dreaming, Miguel says, his voice carrying love that transcends time and loss. It's to discover what bigger dreams become possible when you're no longer worried about survival. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid potential, you can feel these principles settling into your understanding of how authentic success actually operates. Dreams that expand to accommodate not just personal achievement, but community transformation. Success that becomes a platform for larger service rather than an endpoint for personal ambition. When I tuck the girls into bed each night, Miguel continues, securing the final elements of his mobile kitchen, I tell them about their mother's dreams, about their own emerging dreams, and about how work becomes prayer when it serves something larger than immediate needs. Sophia and Elena exchange the kind of look that passes between siblings who share profound understanding. their young faces reflecting both the security of present success and the excitement of future possibilities still unfolding. "The truck taught us about business," Sophia says thoughtfully. "But the foundation will teach us about leadership, how to create change that lasts longer than our own participation, and how to honor Mama's memory by helping other families achieve their own versions of the American dream," Elena adds, her young voice carrying the weight of someone who understands legacy as responsibility rather than privilege. The evening settles into peaceful quiet, and you can feel something fundamental crystallizing in your understanding of what creates lasting abundance. Not just the accumulation of wealth, but the creation of systems that generate wealth for others. Not just personal success, but the development of models that enable collective prosperity. Success measured not just in dollars earned, but in dreams enabled. Legacy defined not just by what you build, but by what others build, because you shared your knowledge, your resources, your belief in their potential. The evening air grows cooler as Miguel finishes securing his equipment for the night, and you sense the transition from active service to reflective conversation, the kind of deep dialogue that emerges naturally when people feel safe to share their most profound insights about life, work, and the mysterious alchemy that transforms struggle into abundance. "The most important thing I've learned," Miguel says, his voice dropping into that hypnotic rhythm that makes wisdom feel like gentle music, "is that abundance isn't something you achieve once and then possess forever. It's something you create fresh every day through the quality of your service, the authenticity of your relationships, and the consistency of your commitment to excellence." Sophia carefully organizes the evening's receipts while listening to her father's words with the focused attention of someone who understands she's receiving education that extends far beyond formal curriculum. Elena arranges tomorrow's supplies with meditation-like focus, her young hands moving with precision that speaks to deep respect for the tools that generate family prosperity. "When people ask me for business advice," Miguel continues, cleaning his work surfaces with the reverence of someone who understands that proper care of tools becomes partnership with abundance, "I always start with the same question. What do you love enough to serve consistently, even when it's difficult? Because if you can't answer that question with complete honesty, no business strategy will save you." You can feel this principle settling into your consciousness like truth finding its proper place. Success rooted in authentic passion rather than merely financial ambition. Service motivated by genuine care rather than purely calculated profit. Work that becomes sustainable because it aligns with deep personal values rather than fighting against them. The food truck taught us that money follows value, but value must come from something real inside you, Miguel says, his voice carrying the authority of someone who has tested this principle through years of practical application. You can't fake authentic care for customer experience. You can't pretend to love your cultural heritage. You can't manufacture genuine enthusiasm for excellence. Elena looks up from her organizing, her young face bright with understanding beyond her years. Papa says that customers can taste when food is made with love, and they can taste when food is made just for money. People always choose love, even if they don't know that's what they're choosing. The profundity of this observation resonates through the cooling evening air like a bell struck in perfect silence. The mysterious way authentic care transmits itself through physical objects, through service interactions, through the very quality of attention brought to any task. The understanding that excellence emerges naturally from love, while mediocrity inevitably results from purely transactional motivation. But love alone isn't enough, Sophia adds with impressive business sophistication. Papa taught us that love without discipline becomes chaos, and discipline without love becomes tyranny. Success requires both, caring deeply about what you do, and caring precisely about how you do it. Miguel nods, continuing his methodical cleanup while speaking. Every successful day requires dozens of small decisions about quality, service, efficiency, innovation. These decisions accumulate into reputation, which accumulates into customer loyalty, which accumulates into sustainable profit. But each individual decision must be made from a place of genuine care, or the whole system becomes hollow. You observe how this philosophy manifests in every aspect of their operation. The extra attention paid to food presentation, even during busy periods. The patience shown to customers who need menu explanations. The meticulous cleaning that maintains equipment for optimal performance. Excellence as spiritual practice rather than mere business strategy. Miguel continues, his voice taking on the contemplative tone of someone who has learned to see business relationships as partnerships rather than transactions. When we cater a corporate lunch that helps important business conversations happen more naturally, we've contributed to our customers' professional success. When our festival booth provides a family with their first taste of authentic Peruvian cuisine, we've expanded their cultural horizons. Elena adds thoughtfully, and when we employ other immigrant families, we help them build their own American dreams, which makes our community stronger, which makes our business more successful. The elegant mathematics of this interconnectedness settles into your understanding like recognition of a natural law. Success that serves other people's success becomes self-sustaining because it creates advocates rather than merely customers. Business relationships based on mutual benefit naturally generate word-of-mouth marketing, customer loyalty, and community support that transcends purely economic exchange. The third principle is patience with the process, Miguel says, beginning to organize supplies for tomorrow's early service while maintaining the philosophical conversation. American culture often promotes the fantasy of overnight success, but real abundance builds slowly, like sediment deposited by a river over many seasons. Sophia explains this concept with mathematical precision. Papa taught us to track our progress monthly and yearly, not daily. Daily results can be discouraging because they're affected by weather, random events, and temporary circumstances. But monthly trends show whether our strategies are working, and yearly comparisons reveal the true trajectory of our growth. And we learn to celebrate small improvements instead of waiting for major breakthroughs, Elena adds, her young voice carrying wisdom about sustainable motivation. Each new regular customer, each successful catering event, each positive review becomes a milestone worth acknowledging. You can feel the psychological wisdom embedded in this approach resonating through your consciousness. Patience that becomes strength rather than passivity. Consistency that compounds into extraordinary results through simple persistence. Progress measured in accumulating improvements rather than dramatic transformations. The fourth principle is reinvestment in your tools, your knowledge, and your relationships. Miguel continues, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who has learned to think strategically about resource allocation. Every month, we invest a percentage of our profits back into the business, better equipment, additional training, stronger supplier relationships, improved marketing materials. Sophia adds proudly, we also invest in ourselves through education. Papa takes business courses at the community college. I'm learning advanced mathematics, and Elena studies languages. The business pays for our education, because our learning makes the business stronger. And we invest in our community through the mentorship programs, charitable catering for nonprofit events, and support for other food entrepreneurs, Elena adds, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of how community investment becomes business investment. The sustainability of this approach strikes you as fundamental to long-term success. Profits that regenerate capacity for generating more profits. Personal development that enhances business capability. Community investment that creates supportive environment for continued growth. The final principle is remembering why you started, Miguel says, his voice taking on the deeper resonance of someone who has learned to stay connected to original motivation, even as circumstances change dramatically. When the business grows larger, when daily operations become more complex, when success creates new pressures and responsibilities, it's easy to lose touch with the simple love that motivated your beginning. He pauses in his work to look at his daughters, his expression carrying the weight of someone who measures all achievement against its impact on the people he loves most. Every evening when we close the truck, I ask myself, did today's work honor Maria's memory? Did it build Sophia and Elena's future? Did it serve our community with authentic care? If I can answer yes to those questions, the day was successful regardless of how much money we earned. Elena moves closer to her father, her young face serious with understanding of the profound responsibility embedded in their family business. And if the answer is no to any of those questions, we talk about what needs to change tomorrow. The evening settles into contemplative quiet, and you can feel these principles integrating into your understanding of what creates not just financial success, but success that feels meaningful, sustainable, and worthy of the energy invested in achieving it. Business becomes a spiritual practice when you approach it this way, Miguel says, securing the final elements of his mobile kitchen. Not religious exactly, but spiritual, connected to something larger than immediate personal needs. Service as meditation, excellence as prayer, success as responsibility to honor the gifts you've been given by sharing them generously with the world. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid wisdom, you can feel something fundamental crystallizing in your understanding of how authentic abundance actually operates, not as accumulation for its own sake, but as the natural result of consistent service, authentic care, and patient persistence in creating value for others. Success that feels worthy of the effort required to achieve it. Wealth that serves life purpose rather than replacing it. Achievement that creates more opportunities for others rather than diminishing them. The kind of abundance that allows you to sleep peacefully, knowing that your prosperity serves something larger than your immediate needs, something that will continue generating value long after your own participation ends. The Chicago evening settles into its quieter rhythm as the last commuters disappear into the subway stations and the riverside transforms from commercial thoroughfare into peaceful promenade. You find yourself drawn deeper into the contemplative space that emerges when a successful day of work gives way to reflection on the larger patterns that shape a life worth living. Miguel completes his final cleaning tasks with the meditative attention of someone who has learned to find satisfaction in both process and results, while Sophia and Elena organize tomorrow's supplies with the focused competence that speaks to deep understanding of their role in something that extends far beyond childhood responsibilities. Tonight feels different, Miguel says, his voice carrying a note of anticipation that makes you lean forward with curiosity. Like we're standing at the edge of something new, something that will change not just our business, but our understanding of what becomes possible when you build from authentic foundations. Sophia looks up from balancing the evening's receipts, her young face bright with excitement about announcements that clearly matter to the family's future. Papa received a call today from the Small Business Administration. They want to feature our story in a national campaign about immigrant entrepreneurship success. Elena adds with characteristic enthusiasm. And the Chicago Public Library asked if we'd be willing to donate copies of all our business records to their archive of local business history. They said our documentation of growth from startup to established business could help other entrepreneurs learn from our experience. You can feel the significance of this recognition settling into the evening air like validation of principles that extend far beyond individual achievement. When your work serves community needs while documenting the process transparently, it naturally becomes an educational resource for others pursuing similar paths. But the most exciting development, Miguel continues, his voice dropping into that hypnotic rhythm that makes profound announcements feel like intimate conversation, is the invitation from the Culinary Institute of Chicago to develop a certificate program in ethnic food entrepreneurship. The weight of this opportunity hangs in the cooling air like promise itself. From food truck operator to educational institution partner, from survival-focused immigrant to recognized expert whose knowledge deserves formal academic framework. The program would combine practical business skills with cultural heritage preservation, Sophia explains with impressive understanding of educational design. Students would learn everything from permit applications to menu development to marketing strategies, but they'd also study how to honor their authentic cultural traditions while adapting to American market preferences. Elena adds thoughtfully, and Papa would teach the section on family business management, how to involve children in meaningful work that builds both business success and family connection. The elegance of this development strikes you as a natural evolution of principles that have guided their journey from the beginning. Authentic success naturally becomes teachable. Effective methods naturally attract institutional recognition. Personal achievement naturally expands into community service when rooted in genuine care for others' success. Teaching at the Institute would mean reducing our direct food service operations, Miguel says, his voice carrying the weight of someone evaluating opportunities that require difficult choices. We'd maintain one truck for practical demonstration purposes, but the franchise network and consulting business would become our primary revenue sources. You observe how this potential transition reflects sophisticated understanding of business evolution, moving from direct service provision to system design and knowledge transfer. The progression from doing the work to teaching others how to do the work to creating institutional frameworks that enable many people to learn and apply effective methods. The decision feels both exciting and terrifying, Miguel admits, beginning to secure his truck for overnight parking while contemplating this crossroads moment. When you build something with your hands day after day for years, the idea of stepping back into a more advisory role requires fundamental shift in identity. Sophia demonstrates wisdom beyond her years in her response. But Papa, remember what you taught us about reinvestment? Sometimes the best investment isn't in more equipment or locations, but in sharing knowledge that multiplies your impact beyond what you could achieve through direct work alone. And Mama always said that the purpose of achieving dreams isn't to stop dreaming, Elena adds, her young voice carrying the weight of inherited wisdom. It's to discover what bigger dreams become possible when you're no longer worried about basic survival. The profundity of this perspective resonates through your consciousness like truth that rearranges understanding, success as a platform for larger service rather than a destination for personal satisfaction. Achievement that becomes the foundation for more ambitious contribution rather than the ending point for aspiration. The Institute partnership would also create opportunities for the foundation, Miguel continues, his voice warming with excitement about integrated social impact. Students in the certificate program could become mentees in our entrepreneurship initiative. Successful graduates could become mentors for new immigrants starting food businesses. The whole system could become a self-sustaining ecosystem for cultural entrepreneurship. You can feel the mathematical beauty of this vision settling into your understanding. Education that creates educators. Success that generates more success. Individual achievement that becomes collective empowerment through systematic knowledge transfer and community building. We've started documenting everything in preparation for the curriculum development, Sophia says, organizing folders with the systematic attention that speaks to understanding of how knowledge preservation becomes knowledge transfer. Every recipe, every supplier relationship, every operational system, every marketing strategy that contributed to our success. Elena adds with pride, plus interviews with all our employees, our franchise partners, and our consulting clients about what methods worked best for their specific situations and cultural backgrounds. The comprehensiveness of this documentation effort strikes you as profound commitment to transparency and generosity. Success that refuses to hoard its secrets. Achievement that chooses to multiply rather than concentrate its advantages. But beyond the professional opportunities, Miguel says, his voice taking on the deeper resonance of someone reflecting on personal meaning rather than just career advancement. The Institute partnership represents something symbolic about our family's journey in America. He pauses in his work to look at his daughters, his expression carrying the weight of someone who measures all achievement against its impact on the people he loves most. When we arrived with $47 and a borrowed pressure cooker, we were asking America to give us a chance. Now, America is asking us to help other families find their own chances. Sophia moves closer to her father, her young face serious with understanding of the profound significance embedded in this recognition. It means we've moved from receiving the American dream to helping create the American dream for other people. And it means Mama's belief in us was right, Elena adds, her young voice carrying love that transcends time and loss. She said we would build something beautiful in America, something that honored our heritage while serving our new community. The evening settles into contemplative quiet as the family completes their closing routine with synchronized efficiency that speaks to countless repetitions refined into artistry. But tonight's routine feels different, weighted with awareness that they're preparing not just for tomorrow's service, but for a transition that will transform their relationship to the work that has defined their American experience. Whatever we decide about the Institute, Miguel says, securing the final elements of his mobile kitchen, the core principles remain the same: authentic service, cultural pride, family unity, community building. These values created our success, and they'll guide whatever comes next. As the Chicago River flows steadily beside you, carrying the city's lights in its dark surface like liquid possibility, you can feel these principles settling into your understanding of how authentic success actually evolves, not as static achievement to be protected, but as dynamic platform for increasingly ambitious service. Success that naturally expands its scope of positive impact. Abundance that automatically seeks to multiply itself through sharing rather than hoarding. Achievement that becomes foundation for legacy rather than monument to personal accomplishment. The girls will have choices I never dreamed possible, Miguel says, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who has learned that the best measure of success is the opportunities it creates for the next generation. They can continue the food business, pursue completely different careers, or create something entirely new that combines elements of both paths. Sophia and Elena exchange the kind of look that passes between siblings who share profound understanding, their young faces reflecting both the security of present success and the excitement of future possibilities still unfolding, according to principles they've learned through meaningful participation in their family's extraordinary journey. The evening air carries promise now, not just of tomorrow's service, but of transformations still emerging, of dreams still expanding, of abundance that continues generating more abundance through the mysterious alchemy of authentic service, persistent excellence, and love that refuses to settle for anything less than the extraordinary. The Chicago skyline settles into its evening constellation as Miguel, Sophia, and Elena complete their nightly ritual with the peaceful satisfaction of people who have learned to find deep meaning in daily work. The food truck sits secured and ready for tomorrow's early service, a testament to dreams built one customer, one day, one decision at a time. Every night when I lock these doors, Miguel says, his voice carrying the weight of gratitude earned through struggle transformed into abundance, I think about that morning 3 years ago, when I stood here with $47 and a prayer. Not because I want to remember the fear, but because I want to honor how far love can carry you when you refuse to give up on what matters most. Sophia carefully places the evening's receipts in the deposit bag, her movements reflecting the mathematical precision that has helped track their journey from survival to prosperity. Elena organizes tomorrow's supplies with the focused attention that speaks to understanding of her role in something larger than individual achievement. Tonight, you've witnessed something profound, Miguel continues, his voice dropping into that hypnotic rhythm that makes wisdom feel like gentle music settling into your consciousness. The transformation of struggle into strength, limitation into opportunity, individual dreams into community service. You can feel these principles integrating into your understanding, like seeds finding fertile soil in your sleeping mind. The recognition that abundance flows naturally to those who serve others with authentic care. The understanding that success built on genuine value creation becomes self-sustaining and self-multiplying. As you drift into sleep tonight, Miguel says, beginning to dim the truck's lights while maintaining the warm energy that has characterized this entire evening. Carry with you the knowing that your own potential for creating abundance is unlimited when rooted in authentic service and persistent excellence. Sophia adds quietly, and remember that every successful business started with someone who decided to stop making excuses and start making value for other people. Elena contributes her own wisdom with the earnestness that only children possess when sharing something they truly believe. And don't forget that love makes everything taste better, work better, and grow better. The evening air carries the scent of spices and possibility as the family walks together toward their car, their voices mixing with the gentle sound of the Chicago River flowing steadily beside the darkening river walk. You watch them disappear into the soft glow of streetlights, their laughter echoing off the water like music that speaks to the fundamental joy of building something meaningful together. Let their story become part of your own journey toward abundance. Miguel's voice seems to whisper on the evening breeze, though the family has already driven away toward home. Let their principles take root in your subconscious mind as you sleep, growing quietly into unshakable confidence in your own capacity to create prosperity through authentic service. The Chicago skyline twinkles with infinite possibilities as you feel your body relaxing deeper into comfort, your mind absorbing the lessons of this evening, like fertile earth receiving water. The understanding that success isn't about having special advantages, but about consistently serving others with excellence, authenticity, and love. Feel your breathing naturally slowing as these insights settle into your sleeping mind. The river seems to whisper as it carries the city's lights toward Lake Michigan. Know that you possess everything necessary to build your own version of Miguel's success: the capacity to serve, the willingness to persist, the ability to find authentic value that you can share with your community. Your consciousness drifts like a boat on peaceful water, carrying with it the certainty that abundance flows naturally to those who approach their work as Miguel approached his, with love for the people served, pride in cultural heritage, commitment to family, and unwavering dedication to excellence in every small detail. The sounds of the evening, distant traffic, gentle water, the city's quiet breathing, blend into a symphony of possibility as you sink deeper into the knowing that tomorrow brings fresh opportunities to apply these principles in your own life, your own work, your own journey toward the abundance that awaits all who serve with authentic care. Sleep comes naturally now, carrying you into dreams where the seeds of prosperity planted by tonight's story take root in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind, growing quietly into the unshakable confidence that your own success is not just possible, but inevitable when built on the foundation of love, service, and persistent excellence that transforms ordinary work into extraordinary abundance. The river flows. The dreams begin. The seeds of your own prosperity start growing.